Welcome to another live stream. It's our time to get together and talk about gangstalking. Now, there's a lot going on out there. Of course, there was the attempted assassination of President Trump. I was at work when it happened. The whole thing was very shocking. This this whole hunt down of former President Trump has gone to a whole new level now. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories that are popping up and so on and so forth. I don't know. The only thing I know is that there's a lot of things that don't seem to make a whole lot of sense, and I don't know if I have the right information or not. I'm assuming that I do at this point. And evidently that there was some people in the crowd that had seen Thomas crawling up on a ladder to get on the roof around for a few minutes at least, because I think we're about 6 minutes into the speech or the rally, and I think that they noticed this whole thing, and they're yelling to the cops, and they're pointing out this kid up on the roof and everything, and evidently the Secret Service had him in the scope, and they had their sights on this guy with a gun on a roof in an elevated position near a campaign rally with the former president for 42 seconds before he started shooting. And then, of course, they took him down. I'm not sure if that's exactly that's the information that I've gotten so far. That sure sounds strange, doesn't it? I mean, not only when you're dealing with tactical stuff concerning, the profession of the Secret Service area, which I do believe, and I could be wrong about this too, that the current administration had denied Trump funding on that. They also have denied Kennedy completely on that issue, which is real strange because, of course, we know about the Kennedy assassination, and his brother was assassinated as well. But when you look at what happened in some of the videos, some of that stuff is just I don't know how to explain it other than it's very suspicious. Okay, and maybe there's some things I don't know about that, but there's a whole lot of heat out there about this whole thing. But the thing that, as far as gang stalking and as far as what targeted individuals deal with, because I don't really consider this a political channel, and I'm not really into that. However, some of this stuff runs over into that. But the thing that, targeted individuals are dealing with on a regular basis is these people who are harassing you. And, sometimes it manifests in a type of government program or a scenario where people are dealing with professionals, they're breaking into their houses, and so on and so forth. They are surveilling them. They are spreading rumors about them. They are discrediting them. They're doing all kinds of things about them. And I think it was Anthony who put a comment in about it doesn't, seem to matter what he does. They always find an excuse and a reason to persecute, right? To go after the target individual. We're going to talk about that because, as far as the Trump is concerned, I don't think there's anyone out there who could say that there's a lot of hatred that has built up, and it doesn't. For me, it baffles me. I don't understand it, and they've of course labeled it as, Trump derangement syndrome. And for me, it's a manifestation of a form of gang stalking, in my opinion, because targeted individuals deal with that, right? I've mentioned the inconsistencies before concerning some of the lateral comparisons that are out there in society where people have done horrible things in your community. They may be on a list. They may even be prolific individuals in your community, and they've done the things that targets are consistently accused of, whether they're, predators or sexual deviants or drug dealers or whatever. They're out there, but they're not receiving any, persecution or any, heat or pushback from any. They're not experiencing gang stalking at all, right? And it seems inconsistent, right? Because, the justification, we're going to get into those things, for this activity is always based around either disinformation, or they dig something up about the targeted individual or their past or something like this. This is why we're doing this to you, or whatever. Or they'll throw some disinformation in there that follows the criteria of a persecutory delusion, as they try to drive their target, the victim of their little campaign, insane, right? Because all these things are geared towards that. A lot of this, a lot of the framework that's involved in gangstalking is a complementary type of methodology, and so when you get into this whole thing, it's important to understand what you're up against. It's important to understand the derangement that is out there, the influences, the people that are getting paid off, where their consciences have been seared, and they're just ruthless, or they're obsessed with targets. We've talked about that before. What are these people getting out of it? There's so many other options. Why are they so interested in you? Why are they coming after you? Why are they not engaging in, productive, pleasant, normal activities? Why? What's their dog in this? What's their dog in the fight? Why are they so concerned about targeted individuals or about you? What is it that they're getting out of this? The people who are getting paid money, well, that's easy to figure out. I mean, they're doing it for financial reasons. There's other people who are not, and we've profiled those individuals before. We're going to go into that a little bit, but it's important to understand that there is a type of derangement involved with the people you're dealing with. Okay, and I've talked about the different influences. Some of the things like money, of course, that's a lot of people do a lot of things for money. Okay, but it's not always like that. Okay, and when you get somebody, as far as this shooter that attempted to assassinate Donald Trump, they've got some of the footprints out there that are making a lot of people suspicious, in the sense that they've got the interview with one of the peers, and there's going to be people out there, probably in the targeted individual community, who might suspect different conspiracy theories about this guy was supposedly a loner. They established that, which is kind of suspicious. I mean, I'm not saying it's not true, but there's always the lone gunman, right? He's, we're not even going to mention the fact that they had him in the scope for 42 seconds before they, took him down, or before he started shooting. Hold on a minute. Looks like somebody's coming around the property. Hold on a minute. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to interrupt the live stream here. No, it looks like it's nothing major. Sorry about that. Not only is that suspicious, sorry, we'll get back into this, but, you have that classic theme that goes along, with the lone gunman. Our last assassination attempt was Hinckley with Ronald Reagan, and there's just a lot of things out there that a lot of people would find suspicious. But of course, he was bullied, according to the testimony that came out there. So it almost appears as this dude was similar to a lot of the target individuals out there. Evidently, his parents were therapists or licensed counselors. Excuse me. Okay. Was he on an SSRI drug? We don't know. At least I haven't had that information given to me yet. But there's a lot of things on both sides of that. Is this guy, some kind of, Manchurian candidate? I'm not saying that's what's going on, but you can see that the profile of this individual, as far as being bullied, he was a sad case, so on and so forth. They're setting this up, which may or may not be true. That of course that probably led into it. Was he playing, the video games, the first person shooter video games? Of course, one of the things that I used to play a lot of those, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's fun, but you learn a lot of military tactics, and it's I've run into a lot of people who get into that, and it's almost like they believe that they're military after they've played it for a while. And you spend hours and hours and hours playing these games and learning tactics about elevated positions and choke points and all that stuff. And by the time you're done playing, some of those. I mean, it's almost like military training. It's psychological, but is some of that going to come out? Of course, the kid, used an AR-15, which we already know that's been demonized, and there's a lot going on with that. But the whole thing around this is that type of hate and derangement that is similar to what targeted individuals deal with. And I believe, in my opinion, yes, there are people who get paid. There are people who do this stuff professionally as far as gangstalking is concerned. But there are people who are literally pathological in their hatred towards people. They are looking for a scapegoat. They are looking for someone to persecute. They need this stuff. And like Anthony made the comment, it doesn't seem like there's anything I can do. If I do exactly what I'm supposed to do, they always, manufacture something to come after Anthony or any targeted individual out there. And I've talked about that. As far as the targeted individual community is concerned, you'll see the perps playing around. And to me, it's obvious who they are. They always interact with each other and so on and so forth. But they're always baiting people. And of course, once you react to it, it's similar to all the things targeted individuals are going to deal with. Of course, the gloves are off, and there's justification for them to let you have it. Of course, they're already encircling you. They're already triangulating the victim. And once you try to stand up for yourself or push back in any way, shape, or form, or react in the classic gang stalking methodology, they got you, and they're gonna let you have it. And it's the game dynamic. Of course, you're gonna lose because you're outnumbered. You're being ganged up on. They've got information on you. They've been profiling you. They've got cameras in your house or whatever. They've hacked your phone. They're watching you. They're set it all up, and then they just light the fuse, and you're toast. And of course, the degradation and the humiliation and all the things that go along with what targets deal with, it really traumatizes the victim. It invades their psyche, and it subjects them to the initial stages of traumatic mind control. And it just really ruins the life of the victim, and they experience all those different infiltrations that I've talked about before. As far as the associations. And as far as, even just communicating with people, the spiral that the target is thrown into is exponential. Once someone is attacked with personal information, or they are shamed or isolated, which all those things are part of it, then they start looking for it, and they start, trying to figure out the double meaning in conversations, or they're trying to figure out what people are up to. They become very apprehensive. They become very suspicious. And that's only natural for what targeted individuals are dealing with. And I've talked about that before. I call it a targeted individual warranted suspicion. Of course, to everyone else, they look paranoid. They just look like they're suffering from some type of, drug-induced psychosis or some type of mental condition. And it's a harassment methodology that creates paranoia, right? Seemingly unwarranted suspicion and paranoia in the victim. And it's basically hijacking their physiological and psychological mechanisms of survival. It's asymmetrical warfare. The target never knows what's going to happen next. The only thing they know is that they're being attacked, and it seems like everybody is in on it. And it just depends on who you are and what you're dealing with, of the methods that are going to be used as far as the gang stalking that you're dealing with. Very covert methodology involving sensitization, which I've mentioned that before. If you're a new targeted individual and you don't know what's going on, and you're trying to figure out exactly what you're dealing with, it's a set of tactics. Okay, it involves plausible deniability, and it's a type of subjective stimuli to create associations from things in your environment. Okay, and it's a way to attack you in broad daylight with other people around you that are unaware of gang stalking and the horde of deranged attackers that you are dealing with. They're unaware of that. They're not going to know, and they're going to think you're crazy, using actions, words, phrases, environmental stimuli for covert harassment and a type of secret communication with the victim and it's used in combination with different trauma attack techniques for the invasion of the target's mind or psyche. And of course, those associations have reciprocity. And so once the target is attacked with these things, as an example, it might be whistling a certain little tune or a certain phrase or word or something about your past. Maybe they've dug into it. Maybe they got some dirt on you. Or maybe it's just something that's been manufactured like a rumor, but the theme is going to be consistent. And all these people, the horde of deranged attackers that you were dealing with, they're going to mention that and you're going to know, right? And to the regular bystander or someone who is not involved, well, they're just talking about something. You're reading, oh, so you must be paranoid. Oh, so you did something wrong. So now it's an implication of guilt for the target, even though they've been attacked in this way, whatever it is, whether it's hand gestures, whistling, phrases, words, colors, symbolism, so on and so forth, multiple times before they would even notice this stuff. But now, the implications have reciprocity. If you say anything, you're nuts, you're reading into it, or now you might even have a guilty conscience. And it just plays in to that whole strategy. In the case that someone has made up a rumor about the target or individual, it's very common. A lot of targets out there, they don't even have anything going on. It's like Anthony was saying, he hadn't even done anything, right? But now if you look, or if you jerk your head over, or if you give any recognition to the accusations or these, little, conversations that are going on, or someone approaches the people at your workplace and says, well, I just say this to the individual. Of course, and if you puff up or you notice it, or, they're just doing the directed conversation, now they're going to believe whatever disinformation has come their way, and the whole thing explodes. Of course, the target is being accused of all these things, and it looks more realistic, along with the downward spiral of dysfunction that the target is going to be dealing with in the methodologies of gangstalking, because of course you're going to be experiencing the effects of harassment undoubtedly as you move through this landscape. You're going to be paranoid, which is natural for somebody being hunted down. You're going to be preoccupied in your thoughts. You're not going to be able to concentrate. You're going to be dealing with all these different, strategies. You're going to be a loner. You're going to be isolated, and it's just going to look that much more believable. And it's a type of complementary methodology. And concerning, the perps and stuff like that, the manufactured justification that you're dealing with, it is. I think the best way to describe it is a type of complementary methodology. It's need based. There's purposes involved in it. It's multi-purposed. They vent on the target. It's a type of social glue, and they get put in the place of a scapegoat. They can get caught in that social dynamic that I've talked about before, where people can get drawn into gang stalking that don't even know what's going on, and they think the target is a deviant, or they're crazy, or it's just a social thing, and they don't want to be the victim. Then, of course, you have the other motives. If targets are dealing with a type of government program or whatever, of course, it's just going to discredit them. And it's just that much easier to experiment on them in case they're trying to find ways to silence whistleblowers. Of course, there's also the narcissist supply. Yes. And for people who've been dysregulated and are using gang stalking as a way to, reform their identity, and we talked about that. We should go into that a little bit, to regulate themselves and cope with life, to keep themselves safe, and to be that the vampire or that zombie, and persecute someone, and just find purpose in their life by doing that. Like I said, it's a type of need-based methodology, control, and it's a way to protect themselves too. There's a lot of people out there that are probably hypocritical in a lot of the things that the target has been accused of. They may have those skeletons in their closet, and of course, to avoid the grim reality of their own failures, why they're going to come after you, whether it's true or not, to prove that those things are not true about them. But of course, whoever blows their horn the loudest is usually the most guilty. It's just a fact, an undeniable, fundamental reality that we all deal with. It's also a way for them to protect themselves in the case that if they are dealing with unpleasant emotions and maybe even emotional pain in their life, that they can turn this and turn that whole thing into activity and a way for them to vent their emotions in a way where they can perceive in their short-term modus operandi, that's doing something in the sense that, that rather than deal with pain or anger or whatever it is in their life, they get to puke it out and project it out upon their victim, of course, while they're persecuting and stealing virtue from them and covertly murdering them and gaining that identity, similar to what I've talked about before. When you're dealing with the vampire, of course, they have no reflection, right? They have no identity. Most of the people, and we talked about that in the last live stream, that end up, being needy in the place where they have that type of psychopathy that allows them to be perps, because it's not just something anybody can do. If you go out and ruin somebody's day or push them into a place where they go shoot themselves in the head or, become depressed or, whatever, well, that's not going to make you feel good. That's going to make you feel bad. But of course, for the perp, for the chronic gangstalker, for the deranged individuals that you're dealing with, that's food for them. Okay, that's where they get their energy. They find entertainment in this stuff, like zombies, like vampires, living in the dysregulated desert of their life and their need-based motivations to do these things. And it's obvious, really, past of normal options, but they can regulate themselves in that sense and protect themselves from negative emotions while projecting all the things that they do not want on you and manufacturing the justification to get away with it, right? A very short-term modus operandi, right? An ideological zombie or vampire, right? And of course, the effects of that are going to be long-term dysfunction, a hardened heart, and of course, a very guilty conscience. And I've mentioned before that I've had people admit to me that they were doing, so they just couldn't handle it anymore. Because, one of the things that you do in your protocols, and I've talked about this many times, you don't want to react. You don't want to give them any reaction at all. You want them to become obvious. You want them to have to step out of the darkness because you want to kill the gaslighting, and you want them to be obvious, and then maybe they'll get caught or they'll get sloppy or it just doesn't work for them. But the other protocol, of course, is to just do what the Bible says, right? If your enemy is hungry, give them something to eat. If they're thirsty, give them something to drink. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Their attack is negligible, and you are not the aggressor. That's good news for you. And you don't have to worry about anything. You can go to sleep at night. You don't have to feel guilty. You're not breaking any of the laws of the universe. For them, they are, okay? And it's going to weigh on them. And when you do what you're supposed to do, it is like heaping coals up upon their head. This talks about that. I do believe in the Proverbs, right? When you're kind to your enemies, that's what happens. And I've had that. I've had them just break down and start, confessing things, or maybe even crying, apologizing to me. It doesn't always happen because, like I said, there's a huge amount of people that are just deranged and sadistic. And it's very confusing. And I've talked about this before. A lot of people will say, well, how many people out there are involved in this? I think there's a lot. Okay. And I think there is a broad knowledge, if nothing else, of the sadism, the sadism that is involved in this whole thing. I was watching a show the other day, and it's entertaining to see these things in play in a more covert way. Okay. Targeted individuals are being attacked in ways that are very overt and in your face and obvious, just malevolent, nasty stuff, right? Not a whole lot of slapstick comedy involved in what most of you are dealing with every now and again. It can get that way to try and convince the target that, oh, come on now, it's not that bad. You can't handle it, but usually it's pretty rough. But, there's a lot of stuff that's out there concerning the horde of deranged, in my opinion, demonically influenced individuals that are out there. It works its way into other areas of society. Of course, when it comes to targeted individuals, I've mentioned the fact that you can't do this to a large majority of the population without ruining the effect of it. Okay? You can't, because it wouldn't work anymore. It would become normal, right? Now, not to use this example to rub anybody the wrong way, but the LGBT community is that stuff has become kind of normalized in our society. Back in the 70s, that kind of stuff wasn't acceptable. Drag queen story hour wasn't something you're going to be able to just walk into school and do. And now there's a lot of places where it's just normal, right? It never used to be that way because by ad populum, just by exposure and infiltration into the world, that type of immorality has become mainstream, right? If you did that with everybody concerning gang stalking, well, you wouldn't be a crazy paranoid lunatic anymore. You'd fit right in. Okay. But getting back to the point, I was watching My 600-Pound Life. Okay. And so I'm watching this whole thing and I'm listening to the doctor, talk to these people, they get on the scale, they go down to where this dude is. And it's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, and they're all lifting this person out of this, bed or whatever. And it's like, they can't even get up and go to the bathroom anymore. They're just huge. They're between 500 and 1,000 pounds, man. And it's like, oh, I got a problem. What are you going to do? You're going to lose some weight, And they put them on the scale. It's like, I can't believe it. I only eat like 56 cheeseburgers and 2 pizzas for breakfast. But, it's here's what I'm getting at. Okay. So the doctor is like, okay, well, you got an eating problem. Well, really, that's not what's going on. It isn't. Okay. That's called metabolic syndrome. Okay. What happens when people get insulin resistance? And I've dealt with this, okay? It's so you can eat and eat and eat, and you're still going to be hungry because what happens is your cells start burning glucose. Okay, you're really designed to burn fat for energy, right? Of course, these individuals who are overweight, and a lot of people out there who have metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance and don't know it, they're always hungry and they're craving the sugar and the carbs and so on and so forth, and they just can't get enough. And the thing is that your body runs out of that supply of glucose shortly after you get done eating. And like I said, your body's not burning fat anymore. So what happens? You get hungry again, right? And then, of course, you have the reinforced mechanism of your brain where you get the endorphins and the dopamine and all that. And so food becomes like a drug. But, these people are being demonized. It's like, why don't you just quit eating? My gosh, you why don't you stop being the doctor? I told you had to lose 100 pounds and you gained 50 pounds. You're supposed to eat 800 calories and you've been cheating. You've been drinking soda. You got to eat right. You got to eat the right. But of course, there's a reason why they're craving this stuff. There's a reason why they're not losing the fat and so on and so forth. And they're hungry all the time is because their cells are screaming for sugar, right? It's not that they're gluttonous. It's not that they're immoral. Okay, these people are literally suffering from a physical condition, but no one's telling them, right? They're just, you just won't stick with your diet, right? You just won't do this. You just won't do that. You're a pig. You're fat. You're disgusting, right? Same thing that happens to target individuals. Manufactured justification, right? And then there was even a lady that took this guy. He's, okay, we gotta go to the store. We gotta get all these groceries and everything. Oh, I'm a dietitian. I'll help you. It's really not about carbs. Well, here, we'll get you. And she's getting them all this high carb food and fructose and sugar and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm a stupid delivery guy, and I know this isn't gonna work. There's no way that these people are this dumb. Okay, it's sadistic. It's sadism, and it's an example that I've used before. Is that when targets they play that game to where they might be getting angry. They have an addiction problem or something. Of course, they're being harassed and they're being gang stalked, and the people around them have encircled them, and they're playing this little game. Well, if you just do this, if you just go to work, they're getting workplace harassment. So they're moving from job to, you just don't want to stick with it. Oh no, that stuff's not real. You're just having a delusion. People aren't after you. Oh, you can't. And then they'll drink or they'll get into a substance problem or whatever. Why? Because they are dealing with deprivation, just like the people who become fat and addicted to food, and then they get stuck in their house. And the only thing that can make them happy is another cheeseburger or another piece of pizza. Okay. And they get stuck in this rut, and it's incremental. All these things are incremental, and the stages of gangstalking are also incremental, but it's a mind game. And, the people that are out there, Who knows exactly how many, when you're looking at the population, would know about all this sadistic stuff. And I've talked about the secret societies and the hidden knowledge of secret wisdom and some of the things that the elites know. Okay, they know. I've had people say things to me, and I can think back in the past. They would say something, oh yeah, you just gonna. They'd kind of joke amongst you, just groping around in the dark, aren't they? Yeah, they don't see what's going on, and they know about the fluoride. They know about the food pyramid. They know about the ridiculous stuff that's in our educational system. They know about the propaganda that's out there in society. They know about the big pharma conspiracy, and they're on the inside of this whole thing, and they're laughing. They're laughing at sadism. And there is a horde of deranged gangstalkers around everyone. Well, anyway, I'm going to go in. I'm going to go into the comments and see who's out there in the live stream. Okay. Eric Anthony, welcome to the live stream, YOLO One. I don't even see these people before, but I'm glad you come in here. We don't have any of the regulars. On average, Joe, welcome. You're a regular. Firefighter. Oh, always good to have you in here. Welcome to the live stream. Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got another thing going on here. Firefighter is in a conversation with NC. There's a part of me that thinks there are blood tests that prove if you are chosen, the feds know about us, more about us than we do. That's interesting. There's a lot of people who talk about genetic conspiracies. There's a lot of stuff out there, even as far as the pandemic and the super dodgers, the people who have never gotten COVID or have never really had symptomatology for the SARS-CoV-2. And that's interesting. And you get into the bloodlines of the secret societies that go all the way back to Egypt and some of the mythos involved in different lineages and the mingling of genetics and stuff like that. But here's one for you. Okay. So if you guys have ever, run into people and well, I've never even caught it. I've never even had, that problem, and I've never taken the jab or anything like that. But they have found out, and I'm afraid that if I do this in a way where I'm not careful, that I could get a violation. So I'm going to be real careful on this. They have speculated that there are people out there with HLA-B1501 chromosome, or a double allele chromosome, or a heterozygous chromosome, HLA-B1501, that they have an MHC or an HLA resistance to the PRA insert or the gain of function enhancement of this virus. Okay, what does that mean? In simple terms, it means your immune system will fight it off. Okay, now that's would be considered a genetic mutation. Okay, interesting, isn't it? So there's actually a genetic resistance. Hypothetically, to something like that. That's interesting. And then a lot of people have talked about different blood types. And then, of course, when you get into the Rh negative, that you get into different things that do involve conspiracy theories and different lineages, in the sense that is not something that would naturally happen. And people, that might be pregnant or something with a baby that's got that, your system attacks it. So it's supposedly alien to the human genome, in the sense that it's more of an unexplainable anomaly that a lot of people have speculated comes out of the Genesis 6 account, when you have the mingling of the angelic realm and the humans, which goes into a whole other area of gangstalking and the hierarchy of puppets that you're dealing with. And I've talked about that before. You have the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Rosicrucians, the Committee of 300, the Council of High Freemasonry, the Council of 33, up to 100 levels of the Scottish Rite. And then you have things involved in the occult, whether the Mothers of Darkness, the Sisters of Darkness. All those things go up in this pyramid effect it seems to be interconnected at some point. Not only the people as far as wealth and power and you know, the lack of subjection to things like gangstalking, for example, but other things involving just the privileges of this world and society, moving on up into the royals and different families in the West, which they do have those connections into those different bloodlines and stuff like that. When you get into the mythos of Vlad the Impaler and Dracula, for example, Prince Charles has that direct lineage going into that, which, you know, you get into different things involving inbreeding and different blood types, and the whole thing goes all the way back to when, after the flood, God changed, well, I don't know, the ability of this whole genetic mingling, in the sense that not only that was hindered, but the lifespan of humans was also shortened tremendously. And some of the half breeds, I guess, or the bastard children, or the mixture, which is where you get the unclean spirits and stuff. A lot of people think demons are fallen angels. That's not really the Hebrew perspective. They are the result of the mixture of the angelic realm and the human realm, and they are the unclean spirits. Which it's not that they're dirty or they need a bath or anything, but the Hebrew understanding of that is that is a mixture of you know, angelic flesh and human flesh, and it's a type of I don't know, abomination, or it is considered unclean, or strange flesh is referred to in the judgments, and I think it's in 2 Peter and Jude, concerning different abominations that are listed concerning the Genesis 6 account and the immorality of human beings. But getting back into the point, what they were doing is, when their lifespans were shortened, the mythos is that in order to retain some of their mental faculties, as they tried to survive this change that would shorten their lifespan and hinder them from you know, tampering with genetics and so on and so forth, is they would literally drink human blood. And so the whole mythos of Dracula comes out of that whole thing. So when you're getting into the blood types, and you're getting into all these things, there's a chain of events that it goes back to. It's real interesting to get into those things. Let's see who else is out here. Bora Bora, welcome. Okay, King Jr. says, is it possible to find love as a targeted individual? I think it's harder. I don't think you know, I mean, you can't say that it's impossible, but boy, I haven't had a whole lot of luck. I'm not I'm not gonna lie, but I'm not gonna discourage you either. I think that the fact that we have come together as a community, and I've talked about that before, that you know, before all this, before the online possibility of people getting together and talking about this, it was just desolate. It was a complete desert wasteland. I didn't know if there was anybody out there experiencing these things. There's probably still a lot of targets out there who don't even know what they're dealing with. They don't know how to process the information. They don't understand what's happening to them, and they certainly don't know about the target individual community. Hopefully they will find it, and hopefully they'll find the proper information. But you know, the fact that we are together, aside from the cruel reality that perps have used the target individual community as a hunting ground now, you got to be real careful who you share information with. But it still opens up possibilities for that. Thank God for that. The very fact that we are getting together now and sharing our time together, and you guys can interact, is a blessing that I did not have the luxury of when I began this whole, this trek, this journey into the wonderful world of gangstalking. But that's a fair question, and it's a grim reality for targeted individuals, is that it is lonely. And it's one of the methods of gangstalking and discrediting someone and ripping the building blocks away from their life. It is to isolate them, right? It's to isolate them and get them into a place where they are needy, right? And it's the whole thing is complementary. Like I said, you discredit someone. You get in there. Well, let's see. Where do you start out? with the setup, of course, you invade and encircle the target, right? The whole process of gang stalking involves, that infiltration. And then you move into the traumatic mind control where you traumatize the poor target, you isolate them, you discredit them, you gaslight them, you experiment on them. You use all kinds of different methodologies to reprogram them. You feed on them, you reform them, and then, it's, depending on what you're dealing with in the agenda, you can destroy them or whatever. Trauma sensitization, the whole thing fits together. It's a nightmare, and it is very lonely. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Tasha Teeling, welcome to the live stream. And Tasha uses the buzzword of our channel, the salient landscape. Dating is the salient menagerie. Oh, that's right. It's more of a menagerie of honeypots. Yeah. Well, and that's true. And it's something that really messes with your mind as a targeted individual as you move through this salient menagerie, this landscape of gang stalking, is that, the people are very easily manipulated. Yes, you're dealing with the derangement. You are dealing with people who are getting paid and so on and so forth. But as I've talked about this several times, is that you have a spiritual foundation to this thing, and that's why you can't leave and just get away. Okay, like I've talked about before, Snowden, right? He's not being gang stalked in Russia. Okay, he's not, because he's not a targeted individual, right? It's more than just the government, in my opinion. We can agree to disagree on that. A lot of people get frustrated with that, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's no excuse. How do you explain Snowden, right? If they really had that computer out there somewhere in the mountains of Colorado that's mind controlling everybody and causing them to have everything from gas to nightmares and controlling all these people to come after you with some type of cryogenic supercomputer with neural monitoring. Why is Snowden getting away, right? How come he's going to get away from that? Why not just use it on him or the other whistleblowers for that technology and get rid of them? Well, it's not to say that there isn't technology like that out there, but there's more to this. Okay, there's more to it. Yes, they're trying to create that type of technology, and who knows how close they are to doing it. But even if they have that stuff, the explosion of technology, in my opinion, in the last few hundred years, is representative of a dispensation of technology and information from the spiritual dimension, from the hierarchy that I've been talking about, that goes all the way back to when God disinherited the nations and handed them over to the principalities and powers: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, finally the Ottoman Empire, and the expansion into the West here. But the cosmic geography is what you have to focus on, and it's very significant. But the technology, there's more, okay? And targets talk about that. I left the country, I left the state, I went to the other side of the United States, I went from the East Coast to the West Coast, I went out in the middle of nowhere, but they still get attacked, and people are still being manipulated to attack them, and they try to find a partner, they try to find a friend, they try to find a good job, they try to find a social circle to integrate into, but what happens? The derangement continues, and people are manipulated and turned against the target using different tactics and correlation effect methodologies to make them hate you and create a hostile and toxic environment around the target. And it is it's a menagerie of hostility and disappointments, unfortunately. But there's still the possibility. I think Matson Miles is definitely probably one of the only ones that I know of, at least in our channel here, that has a partner. But usually targeted individuals are pretty isolated. Okay, let's see what else is out there. Oh, Nicholas, welcome to the live stream. We needed a moderator, I'm going to tell you right now. Okay. Unfortunately, we're almost done with the live stream. I suppose we can keep going for a while. Oh, Tracy, welcome. Good to have you in here. Wow, I found love. Oh, excuse me. To find love will take a lot of praying and a gift from God. It's absolutely hard to trust anyone, especially not knowing a single soul that is also targeted like me in a place I live. It's sad. That's true. That is very true. That's a good point because it's like I said, without the online forum, I wouldn't have anybody to talk. You guys are the only people that I know that experience this stuff. There isn't anybody in my community around me that I know of, and I'm not really that social anymore. I'm going to admit that. But even as I think back, right there's nobody. Usually the people involved or that know about this stuff are involved. Excuse me. Right, and I've talked about the different spiritual influences and mediums out there that seem to expose people to a higher frequency of this activity. Some of the first experiences people may have with gangstalking is they run into somebody who's involved in an occult or involved in heavy drug use of intravenous drugs or something, or methamphetamines or amphetamines, or something that's going to expose them to it, Freemasonry or whatever. We've talked about that. It's not that the Freemasons are after you. It's not that the Illuminati has your picture up on their little, get-together wall. It is just simply a fact that you have a hierarchy and an infrastructure. And as far as I can tell, the spiritual influences on these people, whether they're involved in an occult, witchcraft, a secret society, or a fraternity or whatever, it doesn't matter as long as they are within this world, which is, of course, run by the kingdom of darkness now. People will be manipulated and turned against you. That's the sad fact of what we are dealing with, and that's why it's just so disappointing. And if you want my advice, and this is what I do, I don't know if I'm right, but having realistic expectations as a targeted individual is very important, because it's when you get your hopes up, it's when you get it. They play on that. Oh, you're free. Your stalking is done. We promise. I've had that happen to me where it stopped before. And I even had comments, directed conversations in street theater, just writing, not even directed conversations. They would come up to me, "You're free. You made it. Go ahead and just fly away. You win." And it's like, what? Who the hell are you? And I'm not that dumb, though. And I know that I have to follow the protocol, and I've talked about that before. If there's anybody out there and you're looking at having a relationship with someone, or you're looking at getting back into school, or having some kind of financial endeavor become a major part of your life, or taking a risk or anything, think twice. And if you can't have the small stuff, you don't want to shoot for the moon. Okay. Oh, I have a lot of people that ask me, well, what do you think I should do about this? Or do you think I should, take a chance to step out? You can do whatever you want. Okay. But you have to have realistic expectations. And you have to remember that, if you're one of those targets who's experiencing harassment and it's still happening, you're still getting the break-ins, you're still getting all the cantankerous activity, the workplace harassment, the direct conversations, the assaults on your property, whatever. And it's like, just because it stopped for 6 months, they're probably just watching, or they're trying to, back off so they can come in and shock you again because you just got used to it and they're not getting what they need out of you. What happens if it stops for a year? Okay, what about 2? Oh, you're getting closer. What about 3? Maybe 3 to 5 years. You're already starting to heal. You're less paranoid. You're starting to be more social and everything. And then all of a sudden, here it comes. And the realistic, the protocol of because a lot of this stuff involves a time frame. It's like the gaslighting that targeted individuals deal with. Well, if you'd only quit doing this, or be a perfect person, or whatever it is. And of course, they're going to drive you nuts and trying to get you angry, or try to get you back on the booze or the drugs or whatever they want to, play around with you with and gaslight you with, and use that type of vampire scenario to suck the life out of you. But we'll just say hypothetically that you were able to figure it out and you were able to stop doing it all and be a perfect person. And then you'd go a year, and then you'd go 2 years, then you'd go. But if they're still doing it, right? We'll say your problem is methamphetamines or booze or something or whatever, or you didn't have a job for a while. Now you're working, you're clean, you're sober or whatever, but they're still torturing you. Why? Because they have nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with that, right? That's just a little game that they want to use to put you into that scenario. The manufacture justification to gaslight you and drive you nuts, maybe even turn you against God or something like that, right? But that's what they do. But there's a time frame, right? And the longer you go minding your own business and doing what you're supposed to be doing as a target, I've talked about that before, as a target individual, you want to live above reproach. You don't want them to have an excuse to do these things to you, right? You're working, you're minding your own business, you're living a moral life. You're seeking God. You're trying to please Him. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. There's no excuse for it, right? And what happens? The gaslighting disappears. The culpability is gone. The game is over. And they're obviously just tyrannizing you. They're just torturing you. They are just feeding on you, and they're trying to get you to screw up and to be confused and to move into that place of where they are in their little desert to where they can torture you. That's all it is. But the time frame is very important. Having realistic expectations is important. And not, you don't want to get too excited about anything, right? Because they love to manipulate people. And the only way they can do it, the only way these entities, these deranged gangstalkers can do this to you is if you give them, that opportunity and become emotional, right? It's not that you have to turn into a robot necessarily, but you have to be realistic. And if I could, I'd probably turn myself into one. It would be less painful, but on the serious side of this whole thing, you have to watch that, because that's one of the things that they'll do when they stop doing this. And targets talk about the roller coaster that they're on, that my harassment stopped. People are being nice to me again. I don't know. They're opening doors for me, right? They're helping. My neighbors are waving at me, right? Well, okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's a great thing. Okay, but don't invest yourself into them. Don't start paying attention. Don't try to integrate yourself in an unrealistic way of the salient menagerie that you found out about that is real around you, because, well, you're going to be setting yourself up, right? Because they're out there. That's one of the things that targets realize right away when they're dealing with this, is that it's a reality flip. It's like, my gosh, what, am I dead? Am I in hell? Am I in a simulation? How is this even possible? Well, it was always there, right? That's reality. It's unadulterated, in your face, consistent reality. But before, that was the blindness. Okay, when you didn't know about this stuff, you didn't know about the possibility of gangstalking. You didn't know about the reality of malevolent, evil entities manipulating people and secret government programs and things going on around you concerning the fraternities, witchcraft, all this stuff, and just people being manipulated, the corruption that is in the government, the deep state, the New World Order, the polytheistic mythos that goes all the way back to Egypt. The fact that we are all moving towards it. You weren't thinking about any of that stuff, but now it's in your face, and you have to consider the possibilities and impossibilities, and look how this stuff works logistically, and explain it in a sound way, and process the information so you don't look like a nut, right? Oh, the Freemasons are chasing me down, and they're setting up accident scenes for me. I don't know. I believe you're getting stalked. Okay, I believe this stuff's happening to you, but let's back up for a minute. Let's think about how these things are working and see how this menagerie is put together, and how the mechanism has always been there, and how they want to push you into an area to get your foot caught in that meat grinder. And of course, I've talked about that before, that once you do, or you start talking about it, or you get in trouble, or you react or whatever, you got to fix it quick. You got to be real careful, man, because it's designed that way. And even people that are not involved or know about gangstalking can be drawn into this whole menagerie, because, man, you fit the criteria. You fit the criteria of a mentally ill person. Now we have to take away your freedom, force medicate you, and possibly lobotomize you. The last thing you want to do is get angry, or start carrying around weapons or something, or, talking about, taking care of the stuff you're doing. You're going to be talking to the cops awful quick, right? They're going to use and set things up. Who knows what they'll do? And they do that all the time. They're setting you up constantly. And I've talked about this. There's a plan for targets. This is way beyond just human, organization. Okay. There's targets out there who are just dealing with government stuff. They're dealing with people who are getting together, surveilling them, and just playing a game with them or experimenting. There's nothing to do with demons, but there are people out there who are dealing with this in a way that it is, and it just doesn't seem to logistically make sense. It's not even feasibly possible for the things that targets are talking about, and they are they're accused of having a persecutory delusion, and they're just telling people what they're dealing with. They're being honest. They're not making it up. I believe them. When people tell me this stuff, I know they're not lying. They might be wrong about some of it, but they're not making it up. Okay. It's like what Duncan was talking about. He talks about 10% or less than 10% of the people out there in the target individual community is actually dealing with the technology that he talks about in his books. Okay. But, there's more to it. There's spiritual stuff going on. There's more than just V2K out there. There's more than just directed energy weapons. There's a demonic realm. There's a spiritual side to gangstalking. Okay. It doesn't mean that the other people are just mentally ill. Okay. It just means they're wrong about what they're dealing with. And just because they're dealing with something that's not government doesn't mean they're not dealing with technology too. That's where it comes from. Okay, huge split there, and you have to meld this stuff together and amalgamate it in a proper way to have that, that knowledge to process the information. But that's one of the reasons that targets are branded as crazy, because there's no way. That's not possible for all these people to be. What do you think? You're special? Huh? What's so special? Oh, you got a blood type. Oh, they're after you. The Illuminati knows for you. And they got your picture up on the wall over in their get together over in the Bohemian Grove. And well, no, I never said any of that. Okay. Is some of that stuff possible? There is things that are possible concerning all these, secret societies and fraternities and government programs, and everything. But some of it is just literally demonic. And it is a plan to drive you crazy, to obfuscate the spiritual dimension, to legitimize the agenda of psychiatry and big pharma and all these things. And I've talked about that before, that one of the things that was in the occult that came out in the 70s for people who defected from some of these witchcraft cults was that one of the agendas was science and psychology. And the whole idea was to obfuscate the spiritual reality of human beings and what they are dealing with, and just turn it into nothing but science and psychiatry, right? It's just like what targets deal with when the plausible deniability is used against them, is to obfuscate what is really going on. I'll go back into the comments here. Okay. All right. Okay. Sane Man, welcome to the live stream. Looks like we got some new people in here. That's always good. Maybe they're not completely banning and shadow banning my channel. Nicholas Bosderman says the stuff that they do is super confusing. I don't blame people for being misled. No. Yeah, I mean, that's the importance of having this stuff out there for new targets, because it's a minefield. It is. It's so hard to decipher this whole fustercluck of activity that you're dealing with. You've got all these people who are attacking you. It's a plan. It was engineered and designed to drive you crazy and to get you in a place where you are confused. Okay, and that, well, is an undeniable fact. Okay. And looks like Firefighter's got a comment, but it's about halfway stuck where I can't read it. I'm going to have to wait. Robert Mann says, yep, you have to be a robot. I get it. It's like I've said, man, I've been accused of that. And it's just easier to deal with this stuff. But you have to be realistic as well. Processing the information and seeing the motive of manipulation is very important. And that way you don't have to detach. You just have to get into the third person. I've talked about that before. Step out in a way where you can look at this stuff from a third person perspective and just be like an observer rather than to react emotionally. If someone is harassing you, you kind of step out of that as if you're an observer, And you can see what they're doing a lot more clearly than reacting to this false manufactured hostility and theatrical BS that is, usually used in gangstalking for targets. And once you do that, you're gonna be able to see the motive. And it's not, rather than to detach, from the world emotionally and get into that place where you're disassociating, which is some of the methodology that they use, and in my opinion, a lot of that's demonic. You don't have to, because you see that it's nothing more than manipulation. You're not taking it personal. You're not taking it serious. You see that these meatheads are blind. They're idiots. You have to consider the source. They're sadistic. They're trying to, desperately form purpose for themselves to get that type of narcissist supply or regulate themselves or convince themselves that they made the right choice and, conforming to this whole nightmare as a perp, which I wouldn't like it. Personally, I don't see how they can do it. It's bottom feeder stuff as far as I can tell. But, once you see that stuff happening and you can see the motive is just to manipulate you and that these people are just, being turned into nothing more than human garbage, that, you're not going to react. You're not going to get emotional about it. You're not going to see it as significant. And that way you don't have to disassociate. That's important. Let's see. Firefighter had a comment, and I couldn't read it all. Now I can. The problem with alcohol is if they can set you up right when you had a couple drinks, you automatically look guilty. I had cops try that. Well, they will. That's absolutely a reality for targeted individuals. I've talked about that before. Going to have a couple drinks, it shouldn't be a big deal. I mean, it's definitely not forbidden in the Bible to, it's a drunkenness and being given over to much wine is forbidden, but alcohol is, it's not forbidden. It's not something that, if you're an alcoholic or consider yourself to be one, I would suggest that you don't play around with that, but you can do whatever you want. But the point that Firefighter is getting at, and the point that I've made before, is that you go out there, you just get beer on your breath. You don't even have to be drunk or anything. And what happens? You automatically have lost credibility, and even more so in the fact that the target, it's always your word against everybody else's, right? And what happens in that scenario? By ad populum, you're going to be discredited, right? Oh, no, you were drinking. Oh, you overreacted. You this, you that, the other. And you give them any kind of leeway, any kind of an excuse. And that's all it takes. Even just the fact that targets become loners and isolated sometimes is, I don't know, they're weird. Look, they don't have anybody coming over to their house. Something's wrong with somebody like that. That person's odd. And now, all the stuff that's being spread around about you becomes believable. It all feeds that complementary, methodology of gangstalking. Right? Totally agree with Firefighter on that. You got to watch it. But if you're going to have a couple beers, man, stay home and lock the damn doors and just pretend like nobody knows you're there. And it's really that crazy. Even just sitting out on your porch and having a drink. They'll send over the chain anchor. They'll send the instigator. King Kong Karen coming to you, and that's all it takes, man. And you got some beer on your breath, or you had a couple drinks, and you already lost enough credibility with the ad populum attack that you're toast. And that's, aside from the fact that they could be covertly drugging you or putting something in your food, that when you do have a drink or you do engage in something as simple as even having a cigarette or something, that you have some type of synergistic chemical reaction that can be like being on drugs or do something. And I've seen that too. You got to be careful. So yeah, it's not an easy life, is it? Targeted individuals have it. Mrs. Matson Miles, welcome to the live stream. Okay. Hear Us Now says, your channel is the only thing that got me through this nightmare. Thank you for doing your channel. Well, thank you. I certainly appreciate that. And that's why I do these things, along with the fact that I need it because I'm lonely too. It's a nightmare. It's a desolate wasteland. And nobody knows what we're dealing with except us, guys. People wouldn't even believe it. Even if they saw it, well, they probably would just put their fingers in their ears, la, 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 and go the other way because it is a nightmare. And what do you do? And I appreciate the shout out and the compliment there. Thank you very much. Let's see what else is out here. Okay. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I said King Kong Karen, Gabriel, and there's Kevin's and Karen's, and you guys know what I mean by that. And targeted individuals are going to be dealing with all of them. Absolutely. Okay. I'm just scanning through the comments here. Yeah, King Jr. says something interesting. I was going through V2K, but it stopped when I got clean and sober. Well, that to me, I'm just going to be honest and give you my opinion. That doesn't sound like V2K to me. That sounds more like something spiritual, my friend. And that's just my opinion. And I've dealt with that so many times. You got people who get involved in drugs, or they get involved in something that exposes them to the spiritual dimension, and it's chatter, chatter, chatter. It's voices. It's all kinds of phenomena and gang stalking, and it seems to revolve around whatever it is. They fall off the wagon. They get in methamphetamines. They get really drunk. They get out there. They get into an immoral sexual relationship outside of marriage, or whatever happens. And what happens? Well, their V2K starts. Interesting. Why would the government care about that? Right? It just doesn't seem logical to me. But you know what? The spiritual dimension, well, that's legal leeway for them. And of course, they're going to take every advantage of that. And I've talked about the benefit of realizing the malevolent evil around you and dealing with the problem of evil and seeing the spiritual roots of gang stalking and drawing near to God and realizing that you need Jesus, you need God, and we're all headed for judgment. We're either going to heaven or hell, period. Okay. The gang stalkers have forgotten that. Either they're just, I don't know, maybe they believe something else. But, without that, there is no hope. Okay. But as far as people straightening their life up, getting, involved and reading the Word of God, or being clean and sober and so on and so forth, it's not by mistake that some of their harassment seems to dissipate. The voices, whatever, that can be directly connected to demonic, activity. But you know what? If somebody wants to disagree with me, that's fine. But I'm telling you, I don't know. That's pretty hard to refute something like that. Why would the government even care? All right, they wouldn't. Spiritual dimension, they're going to latch right on to you. Okay, let's go back into the comments. And Nicholas Boserman says, yeah, my V2K went on no matter where I was or what I was doing. Yeah. And the other thing I've seen is sometimes there's a time frame involved in that too, where somebody will, get into the drugs or something like that. And then they'll have to deal with it for a particular time period. Sometimes it might be a couple weeks, couple months, but I've seen it to be 5 years, right? Where people will experience that stuff for 5 years or maybe even 15 years. And then, it just goes away. A lot of people speculate about that, but I don't know. The fact that targets are dealing with so much deprivation makes them vulnerable to substance abuse or different addictions. I know it has for me, and I'm still very susceptible to that because your brain needs you need stimuli. I've talked about the methodology in MK Ultra, that one of the worst things that people could experience was the deprivation tank, right? The sensory deprivation, a nightmare, right? Your brain needs input, right? One of the things that is unfortunate about our correctional facilities and our system of punishment is that people usually get worse. They're just subjected to isolation or whatever. They get thrown in prison, and they end up becoming either more mentally ill or susceptible to crime or whatever. And unfortunately, that's what deprivation accomplishes. And when targets get attacked, and the methodology of gangstalking is employed on them, they become isolated, and they start dealing with social deprivation. They start dealing with emotional deprivation, and your brain wants the dopamine. It wants the endorphins and so on and so forth. Just a regular conversation with someone and a pat on the back and a smile from someone, it's going to have a chemical reaction in your brain. Okay, hugging someone or having a relationship, looking forward to things rather than dreading your existence is going to give you different chemical reactions in your brain. Okay, it's all part of the methodology. Okay, and when you don't have that, it's like a war-torn third world country. What happens? Well, people get into substance abuse. The pandemic brought that up. People started using drugs, and they're locked up in their houses, and they're getting drunk, and violence and murder and all kinds of weird stuff was happening because people were trying to make up for the deprivation. And it's dangerous, and it's something that we all deal with as targeted individuals. I deal with it all the time. Maybe you should just have a drink or whatever. You get mad, you get stalked. You start thinking about your life. It seems unfair. The sense of injustice builds up around the target. Everybody else seems to be moving forward where you're moving backwards. Everything you try to do is sabotaged. And then people are, yanking your chain and, why aren't you doing this? Why don't you have a house? Why don't you have a wife? Why don't you have a husband? Why don't you have a life? Well, you can't tell them because they just say you're crazy, and that would just make you even more frustrated. And so you get tempted. You're tempted, right? What do I do to alleviate this frustration? What do I do to supplement the deprivation, the chemical, the social, all these things that you're dealing with? And a drink, maybe a substance, maybe even sexual addiction, right? Whatever, food, it doesn't matter. Whatever will create that endorphin release, that dopamine in your brain, right? And it's something I deal with, and it's very real. And unfortunately, there's a lot of targets out there who are dealing with it, which just opens up that little game that we've talked about so many times when targets are gaslighted and taking in to that menagerie of manipulation and well, don't do it anymore, here, we're going to help you. And then they get driven crazy, and then of course they're accused, and you can never do it right. And a lot of targets will literally believe it's their fault and internalize the whole thing, forgetting how they got to be paranoid, how they got to be so depressed and anxious and having insomnia and dealing with chronic anxiety and feeling lonely and that deprivation. Is all these things are incremental, very complementary methodology that gangstalking employs on people. And we go back to the comments. Minnesota says, I agree it's ultimately spiritual, but I also don't believe MK Ultra ever stopped. Well, I wouldn't. I'll put it this way, man. I mean, you got to look at it for what it is. That's why I've talked about the spiritual dimension before, and you have to amalgamate this together correctly. Okay, MK Ultra was just something that leaked out. This has been going on for forever, right? Right. This whole all these methods, and they go way back, right? That's when you get into the secret societies and all that stuff. It all goes back. It all goes back to when the principalities and powers started manipulating human beings, and this whole thing started going. And you had the Genesis 6 account. You had technology being given to man, and witchcraft and all that stuff. It all amalgamates together. And you don't even, it was going on before MK Ultra, right? and it's going to be going on until the Lord returns, in my opinion, right? As far as, you know, the hierarchy of power that we are dealing with, how do you create something like that? Well, you have to split people up. You have to use classic Marxist methodology. You create different social classes. You give information to these people. They're the special people. They have the secret knowledge and the hidden wisdom, and they're the ones on the inside. And these people are the slaves. And we'll give them fluoride, and we'll dumb everybody down, and we'll gaslight these people over here, and we'll use mind control, and they'll all be our slaves, and we'll be the special rulers of the world. We'll have everything, and it's more than MK Ultra. It's basically the way this world is run. And it's not going to change until Jesus comes back, unfortunately. A lot of people will get into the political. I'm not a political activist, okay? And the reason I'm not, it's not that I'm a pacifist either. I think you should vote. I think you should do everything that you possibly can to make this world better. But I'm not betting on any of that, because I see the spiritual fingers behind the scenes, and I know that whatever's going on in the political realm or the physical realm with the puppets and the menagerie of deranged gangstalkers that we're dealing with, it all comes from there. Okay, it all starts somewhere. So yeah. There's technology, there's secret programs, there's more than that. I mean, there's people that are literally hooked in to the demonic realm in a way where they have quite a bit of information. Like I've said before, when you get into some of the higher levels of Freemasonry and some of the secret societies, you're looking at things that are so close to witchcraft and the occult that you can't really tell them apart. Okay. Firefighter says this program likes to target folks nobody would believe. Oh yeah, that's part of it. Either that or just to discredit them and take them into the place where they're dysfunctional. They prefer you to be poor, with little friends and family. Absolutely. It's easy to experiment on someone who doesn't have a support mechanism or doesn't have people that care about them. In fact, if you as a targeted individual find yourself in a place where you're being abused or whatever, maybe you gotta be in a hospital, or you gotta do so. A lot of times targets, if they don't have someone that will call and just pretend like they're concerned about them, they, once they find out there's people that actually care about you, or at least they perceive that there's somebody out there that's wondering if you're okay, they might think twice about doing some of that stuff to you. I would suggest you have a friend, if you have to go to the hospital or stay there or something, just have them call up and say, oh, we were just wondering how they were doing. I'm kind of concerned, blah, blah, blah. And that way, you don't look like an easy target, because they like that. They like to isolate targets and get them. That's absolutely a good insight, Firefighter. Nicholas Bosman says, Dr. De facto, the government is interested in bioengineering us. That's what I believe. I don't know. It's sort of out there, but I think that they want to see if they can make someone homosexual or whatever. They've been doing experiments like that, but like I've talked about, that comes out of the demonic realm, and I've talked about that in Demonic Hive, that they all got together back in 1992 and talked about their, the Fabian socialists and the Marxists, what they were going to do to break this country down and infiltrate society. And one of the agendas was homosexuality. one of the major agendas. Okay, yeah, they're doing that. There's a reason they're doing it. And then, of course, you go behind the scenes and you get into the spiritual dimension, and of course, that's part of their agenda too, right? To gain geographical strongholds and to get to the leaders, and to corrupt generations of people. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, once you normalize something like that, once it's normal for immorality to be pumped into the houses of people with children through Hollywood and through the culture, that type of cultural possession that's involved in what Antonio Gramsci, basically, created with his philosophy. And then, you have different social classes fighting each other with Saul Alinsky's contribution, and you get into all that stuff because, that's it all amalgamates together. And immorality is a huge part of that. I mentioned Drag Queen Story Hour. They're going after kids. They want to. Do they want to see if they can? They know they can do it. Okay, they know they can do that stuff to people. Absolutely. And it's once they get into your head. And I mean, is it fair for the government to say, oh, I don't know. You sure you want to be a boy or a girl? We can change that with some pills and an operation. What do you think, Sally? What do you think, Billy? Is that something you want to do to a kid? No. Oh, they're working on all kinds of things. But, as far as the engineering of people, like I said, you get into the hierarchy and you get into the slavery and you get into the elite. Okay. And if they can break people down morally and destroy the patriarchal family and destroy the backbone of society where people can't fight back, they don't know what's right or wrong. They don't know whether it's like targeted individuals are. You're crazy. You're just mentally ill. Or no, well, you're just homosexual, or you're confused. You have an identity. What gender? There's 50,000 genders to choose from. Who are you? And it's confusing people. It's getting them to the place where it's gaslighting 101. They start questioning themselves. They don't even know who they are, let alone what they want or what is right. And, it's a complete 100% flip and infiltration in society. Target individuals are not the only ones dealing with this stuff. And I think Nicholas Bosman has communicated before where he has gotten different forms of street theater and V2K that involves those sexual themes. And some of that stuff is demonic, and some of it, concerning the technological aspect of it, whether it's V2K or not, is a way to degrade and break people down. Okay. Sex is an axiom. Your sexual, identity is very important as far as what you internalize and how you see yourself. And it is an axiom of manipulation. And if they can, use that to degrade people or control people or manipulate them, they can do a lot of things to you. And if they use that axiom, it's very powerful. Okay. It's absolutely used in mind control. All right. All right. Let's see here. Firefighter says, I was targeted by gay men a lot as a kid. They sure seemed to think I was simply a choice, that it was simply a choice, like you could be recruited in. I never got down with being recruited into anything. Yeah, well, now that's, there's a lot of things that are just exactly like that. People talk about, individuals being recruited into the perp community, or people being recruited into cults, or people being recruited into the secret societies. In fact, Freemasonry was a type of infrastructure used for the Illuminati. We're not necessarily trying to get all these people to the higher level, right, to where they really know what we're doing and have that intimate knowledge and secret wisdom and all that stuff of what we're really doing and planning to do to society. But we want every businessman, every banker, every doctor, every smart person, anybody out there who has resources, we want them, at least if nothing else, on the lower level of our infrastructure, because that's power and influence, right? And by ad populum, you have a lot of leeway and power. A lot of people join Freemasonry just so they can get a better loan at the bank and fit in and be successful in their business in the community they lived in. That it ain't got nothing to do with any of the other stuff that they're probably never going to find out about. And they will let them in, and they will recruit people for that type of infrastructure and power. Okay. Well, guys, it was great to get together with you and talk about all these things. Hopefully, I didn't, rub any of you the wrong way and bring something up that, as a point of contention. And I've mentioned this before, that the views that I have are different from a lot of the people out there in the target individual community, and we can just agree to disagree on some of those things. I don't know everything. Nobody does, and we get together and we hash these things out. We look at this stuff, and the important thing is to realize that we do have one thing in common, is that we are experiencing the tyranny of the world, the flesh of the devil, and gangstalking. And the solution is, of course, ultimately going to be Jesus Christ. And when he returns, he's going to set everything in the right place, and he's going to end this tyranny. And I'd like to thank everyone, for acting like an adult. And I'd like to thank our moderators, and I'd like to thank everyone who's been praying for me. I need that. It's hard, to work full time as a person who's crippled and dealing with harassment. I've talked about those things, and I'm still trying to lose weight. I'd appreciate all you guys' prayers out there for my health and perseverance under the tyranny of this nightmare of gangstalking. And I'd like to also thank everybody who hits the like button and subscribes. Don't forget to share this with people out there, because I'm pretty sure they've shadow banned me. There's a lot of people that come in and say, I didn't know you were out here, Dr. De Facto. I had no idea, and I'm glad that I found your channel. And I want everyone to have access to the information that I put out there. And I'd also like to thank everyone who helps support me and the channel. The link is always in the description. Guys, God bless. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.